Welcome to the Hurrian Network, where we're connecting people through networking. And for today's video, we are going to talk about the continuation of virtualization. The last video I broke down what is virtualization. I gave you a scenario, right, regarding from a business standpoint and a company, why it's very useful and things like that, right? But now I want to break down more into that, and I brought up the term hypervisor, if you remember that. So with what a hypervisor is, that is basically what is going to host the virtual machines, right? And we know what virtual machines are now as well too, which are guest operating systems upon your devices that you use, your laptops, PCs, servers, and things like that, right? And now that we have the big picture of that, let's break down the two types of virtualization. And simply, the two types are type 1 and type 2. So now you're probably wondering, right, what is the difference between both of them, right? And I did give a little hint in the last video towards the end, and I'm going to elaborate more on that now. So type 1 virtualization is also known as bare metal virtualization. And this is the one that is going to be big, mainly used within organizations, companies, businesses, and things like that, of course, to basically have the services necessary for them to be running to do the things they need to do for their day-to-day jobs and things of that nature, right? And why do I say that? Well, basically, how it's going to be is that with bare metal, you have your server, right? And basically, the hypervisor is actually installed upon the hardware of this server, hence the term bare metal. And then from there, basically, it's going to bring up the hypervisor as soon as you turn on the server. And it boots up the operating system, the hypervisor gets boots up as well too. And basically, that hypervisor is how other computers, if you are able to reach out to access those virtual machines, you reach out to a web interface. If it's, for example, with something called VMware. VMware is one type of type 1 hypervisor. VMware ESXi is the type of host that you would configure on VMware, for example, right? And you would type in the actual website or the IP address to access the the server. And this server is what's going to have the virtual machines hosted on it. And if you have a group of servers, that's considered a cluster, and that's more on a different topic. And then something called vCenter for VMware, which is a way to manage multiple hosts. So this is type 1 regarding VMware. Another well-known type 1 virtualization is Microsoft's Hyper-V, which you would install upon Windows Server. Whether it's 2012, 2012 R2, 2016, 2019, now 2022 is into play as well, right? So you would actually install the role Hyper-V on your server, and then basically from there, when you install Hyper-V on, you have Hyper-V Manager, and within Hyper-V Manager, that's where you can make your virtual machines that you need to use and things like that. And that's your virtual environment right there, basically. Or also, by the way, you can actually have a client version of Hyper-V on Windows 10. But for Windows 10, I know that you have to have at least Windows 10 Pro or a higher level. And I'm not sure about Windows 11. I wouldn't be surprised if they also have it upon their operating system as well too. But I just remember regarding Windows 10. And those are some well-known ones. And type 2 now we can go into. So with type 2, that's known as a hosted hypervisor. And you're probably wondering, what is hosted, right? So in this case, hosted would be utilized for if you want to, let's say, just do lab environments and test and all this kind of stuff and just see how virtualization is, this is the one that you're going to most likely see and utilize regarding hypervisors and virtual machines and things of that nature, right? So an example would be like the Oracle VirtualBox. Also would be, it's just coming to my mind right now, there's Oracle, and then there is the second one is, yes, VMware Workstation Player. There we go. So the Workstation Player, and then on top of that, you have like even like KVM from like Linux based and things like that. If I'm not mistaken, that's also a type 1 hypervisor. Type 2, pardon me. Type 1 would be like Red Hat virtualization. Red Hat is the servers for Linux based and things of that nature, right? So these are examples of type 2, excluding the Linux one, Red Hat. I just want to bring that up for a type 1, by the way, for a bare metal. So these are basically the differences between both of them and why you would use one in the case that you use it and the other for the other case. So type 1, you think about it for your business, your organization that you're working for. They're going to be utilizing that because they have a lot of services and a lot of things that they're going to need that for virtualization, right? To do specific things that's necessary to make sure things are functioning the way they want things to function. And type 2 you'd most likely see for testing purposes, right? So like in your own environment at home or things like that, where you just want to lab some stuff and learn something new, and you want to use virtual machines for that, you want to test them to see how virtualization works, you would see type 2 in these kind of cases. And now that I've mentioned all of that, I just want to go into the web browser, pardon me. Let me go right here and just go into Google and do type 1 versus type 2 virtualization. So we can see like how the layout is right here, right? So just like I was talking about earlier, this example here is type 1, and it says that right there. You see you have the hardware, you have the hypervisor installed upon the hardware. And when that both gets bringing up and gets booted up, pardon me about the terminology there, when they both get booted up, then these two guest OS, that's the virtual machines you're going to basically create and make. And obviously you could put applications on it just like you would on your computer and whatever operating system you utilize, right? But these are virtualized. So that's the thing you got to keep in mind. And here, right, type 2, you have your hardware, right? You have a host operating system, basically. That's going to be like, let's say Windows 10. Let's say that can be even something like this, Linux Ubuntu, right? And then you'd have to install the hypervisor on the actual operating system that you go into. So when you log in onto your device, your computer, you have to install like Oracle VirtualBox or VMware Workstation Player, and that's your hypervisor that you're going to use to basically create your virtual machines right here, where you can see you put the guest OSs, and then obviously you could put applications within those virtual machines just like you would on your computer, right? And that's why you see applications over here too, because these applications is referring to your operating system of your actual physical computer, the applications that you have on that. So basically, if you want to utilize specific applications and you don't want to put a lot of applications on your host OS and you want to test something out, you could test it on these virtual machines, virtual environment using this hypervisor. And in this case, this is more suitable if you have servers and you have a lot of RAM, a lot of CPU, a lot of storage, things like that, right? For a bigger scale, you're going to see type 1. For testing purposes and small scale and kind of situations and just you trying to play around and test, you are going to see this one here, type 2. And that's what I just wanted to talk to you about today regarding hypervisors with type 1 and type 2. And for anybody that has been watching my videos, I support the appreciation. If you've been liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing it, whatever the case may be, I really appreciate that. And before I close off this video, I just want to bring up something. And that something I want to bring up is there's a dear friend of mine that's in the IT industry, and he started his own YouTube channel, and he's talking about an interesting topic, actually, if you are curious about it. And that's regarding about the IT industry and the hype around cybersecurity. And we know cybersecurity has been very big nowadays, especially, and we know that there's a lot into cybersecurity as well too. So he gives his standpoint on that, and the thing is that he does not only just do it in English, he has it in Spanish as well too. And if you are interested into hearing and looking into that too, I will share the link down below in the description as well. And on top of that, he's going to come up with a third channel in Italian as well too. And in the future, I will share that when that moment comes out. But that was a little surprise sneak peek just to put out there. But right now, he has it in Spanish and English. So for anybody that's in the Spanish community that's intrigued about that, you could check it out. And for anybody in the IT industry in general, and let's say that you don't understand Spanish, well, if you obviously understand English, you could check that one out, right? To see how he goes about it. But that's all I wanted to mention, and I hope you enjoyed this video and got an understanding about the two types of virtualization. And for the next video, what I will do actually is give you an example of the type 2 virtualization on this laptop right here, with me using either Oracle VirtualBox or VM Workstation Player, and I will install one operating system on there. It could be maybe Linux based, like Ubuntu, or it could be even Windows. That you'll find out when the video comes, but that's all I wanted to say. And until the next one, take care.